Hello, everybody, and welcome to our Halfway There Hangout. I'm Emily Aries, the founder and CEO of Bossed Up, and I am so excited to be hanging out live with our pregame Your Career Change Challenge participants. I know that we're going to have folks trickling in all night long, and you guys have been busting your butts in this challenge for 4 weeks, going on 5 already. So today we're here to make ourselves available to you, our members, as a resource, as a space where you can get real about what's working and be candid about what's challenging you, so that we can help you lift as we climb, right? As we're all navigating either a job search or a promotion pursuit or starting that side hustle, we are here to help you get that step-by-step support that you need to make long-term goal attainment happen. I'm going to pull up my slides here in just a second, but I want to just acknowledge part of the challenge of 8 weeks of hustling is this very moment, which we call the middle dip of motivation, right? Halfway through any long-term goal pursuit can be some of the most challenging times to stay focused. So if you're feeling a little procrastinating, or if you're feeling like, oh my God, I didn't get my challenges done, or I'm falling a little behind, I just want you to know from my house to yours that you are in good company and there's no shame in that game. So as I posted in the Courage community yesterday, it's never too late to get your shit together. And really, that's what Jackie and I are here tonight to make sure that we're providing for you. It's like a space where we can get real, put everything out on the table, ask some questions, get some answers, and really support one another as we move forward in this 8-week journey together. So welcome. Make sure to use that hashtag career pregame throughout tonight's broadcast. I'll be monitoring Twitter live over here, and we will also be monitoring your live chat that I know is happening on the same side of the YouTube channel where you're watching this. So feel free to use that chat. I already got a tweet from Erin. Thanks, Erin, for tweeting live. Use that hashtag career pregame or give us a shout out at bossedup.org. What we're going to do tonight is pretty down and dirty. We're going to get right down to it. We're going to quickly review the past 4 weeks we've already crushed together. We're going to highlight some of the progress we have seen in this amazing community. And if you're Facebook alerts or anything like mine, they're just overwhelming with awesomeness coming from that Courage community group. And really what we want to do tonight is take a moment to answer some of the great questions y'all sent in this past weekend's report. Thank you for taking the time to really be mindful of that. And then make sure that if you've got questions that have just popped up tonight, we will take them live. So really anything that is related to the Career Pregame Challenge, things that you're dealing with right now as you're navigating a job search or a promotion pursuit or just making it all happen. I know that, for instance, time management has come up a lot. We're going to talk about that and more. And really, we're going to riff on some of the top strategies that we use here at Bossed Up to keep our game on point. But if you've got advice, this is the community that is such a valuable resource to one another. So if you've got advice or you want to go deeper on any of these topics with us, please feel free to keep these conversations going all night in the Courage community and on Twitter. So use that hashtag career pregame, tweet at us at bossedup.org, and weigh in so we can support one another and really continue this conversation well beyond this hour we have together. Because Lord knows, after I took a half hour the other week to do a live video in the Facebook group, that there's just never enough time to talk through all the great questions we have. So please, this is a safe space to get real. You don't need to put that professional veneer on and pretend to be perfect. This is a spot for us to get real about how we can support one another, which I hope is the same safe space that we've created for you online. So let's keep those conversations going. And as soon as I can, in my crazy, crazy ass schedule, I don't know about you, but my fall is just like crazy right now. As soon as I can, I'm going to do another Facebook Live video chat. So if you liked that, let's keep that going in the Facebook group. So as a brief reminder as to why the hell you're hustling, obviously you're hustling to better your life through bossing up your career, but also we've got this dope set of grand prizes thanks to our sponsors at Rent the Runway. We are gifting our winner, meaning one of the amazing bosses who weighs in, does the challenge every week, and submits her report every week before the next challenge comes out, really. So if you submit 8 weeks of reports, you are in the running for this grand prize. So keep them coming, stay consistent, even if it's just a one-word response. You know, that is there to help you stay accountable to your commitment that you've made by signing up for this challenge. And what's in it for you other than a rockin' career transition? You're gonna get a ticket to Bossed Up Boot Camp, our flagship training program, that weekend-long training for women navigating career transition, which I'm so excited. We are almost sold out for our upcoming boot camp in Boston, Massachusetts, November 19th and 20th. It's gonna be our last of the year, so if you know someone who needs to get there, make sure she applies soon. We're gonna get a complimentary styling consultation and a rental up to $100 from Rent the Runway, which keeps me looking fly when I'm on the speakers circuit. A swag bag full of Bossed Up goodies that we are in the midst of ordering our samples on right now. We are just coming out with a whole new store full of goodies for you. And a 1-hour career consultation with me so that we can take what you've learned and really apply it to your specific situation. So I want to thank Rent the Runway for making this challenge possible and acknowledge for a second that 4 weeks, we've done a lot. So week 1, remember back to week 1, 4 weeks ago at the start of October, you clarified your goals and your audience, which I will come back to again and again. All persuasive communication starts with focusing on who you're talking to and what action you want them to take, whether it's a customer or a potential employer or a partner or your current boss. Getting clear on putting yourself in their shoes and giving them one simple action that you need them to take is the crux of all strategic communications, which we're focusing on in this challenge. You rocked your resumes, which let me tell you, I knew that was gonna take us more than 1 week. So if you are still polishing up your resume, trust me, I think half of our ladies are, because that is a big undertaking, especially for those of you with a lot of experience out there. Then we worked on those objective statements, that clear, concise, 2-part phrasing that really has to do with your best skill set and what you're looking for. So it sort of brings the goal and audience thing back into an easy, quick way to describe how great you are and what you need in like a sort of a quick 1-2 punch, which we're applying to lots of other parts of the challenge. And I loved seeing so many of you snap a new headshot and share that in the group last week. I have to confess, one of my best gal pals who lives in my awesome apartment building here in DC, she called out of work today because she has a big 3rd round interview with her dream job. So she came over saying, how do I look? And we sort of prepped her a little bit for her interview, which was gonna be in person. But before she left, she said, hey, you've got a good DSLR camera. You want to snap a headshot. So we just used a lamp without its shade to put some lighting up, and I took a photo. We did a little mini photo shoot. It took maybe 10 minutes, but she was already all polished up and looking super professional. And now she's got a great headshot that I just sent her today. So funny to be like doing this challenge with y'all. I know that it feels funny sometimes, but putting a little extra effort into polishing up your career is going to pay off in dividends for months, if not years to come. So I'm right there with y'all, and I've seen how it pays off in real time. And on that note, I want to introduce you to one of our very active community members in the Courage community. You might recognize her Boston frock here in her great profile picture on Facebook. I want to introduce TL, who has a great little story to share. We were really excited to see so many people's fabulous updates. I know you've been getting a lot of those updates in the Courage community too. But I want to take a little time to talk through a real example of how TL has taken the challenge and made it work for her. So TL, thank you so much for joining us on the Hangout tonight.
Thank you so much for having me.
Our pleasure. So tell us a little bit, give us a little bit of background. Why did you decide to join the challenge to begin with?
Sure. So I am a contractor by trade, which means I am always hustling. Even when I'm on my current gig, which may be a month to a year, I'm always looking for that next thing. I have to keep very relevant with my network. I have to make sure that my skills are always right at the top of mind. I always have to be talking with recruiters and be ready to pitch. So that way I can, transition from one project to the next. And living in Los Angeles, it can be very, very competitive. And I work in the world of digital technology, which is also very high, lots of PMs everywhere. So I joined you guys because I wanted to make sure that I've got this consistency in being able to stay relevant.
Awesome. Fantastic. Thanks for tuning in from the West Coast. I appreciate it. So what has been the biggest aha moment you've had thus far in the challenge? We've been 4 weeks in now. You've been hustling. You've been weighing in the community. What has been the biggest takeaway for you so far?
That's a fantastic question. So I've had one really good win and one really amazing, fantastic aha moment. And that fantastic aha moment is that just by virtue of showing up with you all in the Bossed Up Facebook group, like every day, sometimes every hour, and you guys holding me accountable. Fallon, I hope you're out there listening. I still got homework for you. But it was that much consistency and accountability that had me showing up every day that really made it so easy for me to be able to just at top of mind say what I need to say about myself and pitch myself like in any situation. Whether I was at an event, a gaming event, talking with friends, like I was this weekend, doing a workshop at Stanley LA Comic-Con, just, things that I did in areas where I don't necessarily think are part of my professional life. But just because I'm here with you guys every week, the last 4 weeks now, going on 5 weeks, and I'm talking about this stuff all of the time, it's like, like how do you get to Carnegie Hall? Practice. And that has been the aha thing, like that because it's been every day with all of you, it's so easy and so natural to just slip right into the kinds of things that I want to say about myself, the way I want to pitch myself without feeling nervous or rushed or hurried.
Isn't it funny how we think sometimes of like advocating for ourselves and really the work we need to maybe put food on our table and what we need to do to show up in this world and be recognized. Sometimes we think of that as like a whole different sphere of our lives. Like business development is this little section.
Right. And also the idea, and I know some of the ladies in the group are like, I've got a 4 or 5 page long CV, I've got a 2 page long resume. We write it and we've got all this great detail down. But when someone's got you on the phone or someone stops you on the street or at a lunch or at a Comic Con, to be able to go boom, 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 and rattle off the things that, like, what is my value prop? Just being able to share that off the top of my head has been like the biggest aha. Because I do this all the time and I'm always networking, I thought, yeah, I got it. But really getting this laser focus with the Bossed Up has just been really amazing, because now I feel like I'm saying things that are really unique to me and not just kind of like generalizing, yeah, I'm a good PM. It's like, no, this is my specific value prop, and I can just recall it so easily because I've had so much practice with you guys over the last 4 weeks, now 5 weeks.
So fantastic. So tell us about the experience when you were able to really put that into practice.
So just recently, I had an interview with an entertainment company here in Los Angeles. And it was the kind of thing that I got through a friend. So this is the kind of thing that I'm always approaching with very nice level of being casual. I don't want to be too uptight. I don't want to be too much like, project managery, because this is from a friend who's like, she's cool, you're going to like it. So I want to keep it something that the conversation flow is great. But I still also want to be able to share like what I'm bomb at, right? So how do I work it? How do I, instead of going, stop, let me now tell you about the 5 bullet points on my resume. So as I was having this conversation, we're about to wrap up, and I look down at my notes and I'm like, get in your objective statement, make sure you say it. And it just was so wonderful, because almost anywhere in the conversation it could have fit, but just at the end, I was able to share the objective statement that we all know work so hard on. I got a lot of great advice on, a lot of great feedback on, just slipped it right in there, just like a glove. And he was so, he's like, man,
TL, I think your objective statement was so good that we just lost your connection. Jackie, are you having the same issue?
To have, because I had shared all of this with you guys for the last 4 weeks. So that was my really big win.
I love it, TL. So TL, your connection is going in and out just a little bit. Can you share?
Casual setting, what my value prop was, right? What I could bring to the table.
Awesome. I love it. Are you there? Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, okay. I'm here and I can hear you.
Awesome. So you were going in and out just a little bit there. So you shared your objective statement. What was the reaction like? We missed that just a little.
Sure. Yeah. So it's just at the end of the conversation, and I'm thinking, I've got to work this in. But again, I don't want to stop and go, by the way, let me give you a rundown of my most valuable skills, because it's got to be something that feels kind of casual. And so I was able to just kind of slip it right. Hey, by the way, so thank you so much for your time. I just want to make sure that what we're talking about and the kinds of problems that you're having are things that we can partner on, because it's very important to me that I bring you valuable projects, that we're creating things that your customers are going to want to come back to and that are compelling for your customers, and that your team is going to go on this wonderful journey, and they're going to have this standout experience. And even that's essentially my objective statement, what I just said, right? And he just came back with, oh man, TL, I'm so happy you just said that. Our team is such an important part of this process. I'm so happy you understand how product works. Like, that's all very important. Our customers are really important, and we're launching a bunch of new things. And it was just like, I was just jumping for joy. Like, yes, I'm so excited, because it didn't sound like a pitch, right? And it didn't sound like a kind of a sell. It sounded like I had my shit together. Yeah. and I did, because again, practicing with all of you for so many days and weeks, and continually writing and revising and writing and revising. So it was just great. And now I've got it that it's so easy to say. I've just got that amazing value prop, what I bring to the table, what's unique about me, just sort of right top of mind all the time. And now I've got a second interview, so I'll be going in person, and then another first one with another company that I hope to use the objective statement mojo on.
I love it. Keep us posted on how that goes. I think it's such an amazing testament to practice too, right? Like, some people are we get so hesitant because we want it to be perfect that we don't practice it. But just forging ahead, moving forward, and really making choices. That's what your objective statement is all about. I'm going to make choices about what to include, which unfortunately make choices about what to exclude, and that it's okay with that. And
what's the essential part of that?
And what I'm hearing from you is someone who really owns their power, right? Owns their strengths, and you know who you are, right? And that's what comes across so strong when you really rack that objective. It's like, TL knows who she is, and she knows what kind of value she wants to bring to the table. Those are the kinds of people we want to work with. Those are the people that everyone wants to work with. Is not just someone who's going to please or perfect or just say whatever you want to hear, but really laser-like focus, which is so exciting. I've got one more question for you, TL, that actually comes from one of the biggest challenges I see a lot of our community members facing that you've done very well, which is brevity.
Oh gosh.
I'm not one to talk, right? Because I am one who likes to talk. But the funny question is, how do you boil it down? And what worked for you to really be able to succinctly deliver that magic glove kind of statement without blabbing on and on?
So I can't harp on this enough. It's definitely practice.
Yeah.
It was definitely working with the other ladies and Bossed Up, and making sure I continue to refine and refine and refine. And really, to your point earlier, Emily, it was that finding that essential value, finding that essential thing. But I got to tell you, it's not normal for me to be brief either. I'm a Latina, originally from New York City. We talk a lot, we talk fast, we talk all the time. So it's not always the easiest thing. So it doesn't come natural to me at all. And I'm a storyteller, I'm a gamer, I'm a dungeon master in D&D, so telling story and setting a scene is something that I innately love to do with people. I love to hear your story, I love to talk about my story, I love to find, our intersections and things like that. But I know in an interview, I only have so much time. So that's what really I think does help, is that if I can make sure I keep it into context. This is an interview, I have only 15 minutes. Really what I do is I go back to the profile, I go back to my objective statement, I just pick 3 things that I want to make sure I say. I want to make sure I say this thing about product, this thing about process, this thing about teams.
Love it.
Or I want to say this thing about subscription services and this thing about, video on demand live streaming, right? And this thing about risk, depending on who it is that I'm talking to. So really is that I could, of course, again, I could go on and on and on about, ladies out there, you've got CVs, right? That are pages and pages and pages, but it's just the essential highlights. And then I just keep notes, and I'm always with my notebook. I'm always with my time management chart. I'm always with notes to myself. Keep it short, keep it brief, keep it short, keep it brief. But the other part of that too, though, is making sure it doesn't sound too kind of robotic. Right. So that's the part that does come a little bit more naturally to me, but I think with some practice, if it doesn't come naturally to you, that could work. Because I don't want to sound, again, like I'm just rattling off a bunch of bullet points. I do want to sound comfortable. I do want to sound confident. And I don't definitely want to sound like someone that's just really like has a tense energy.
Right. Which is so funny because I've fallen victim to that myself, which is the girl who tried too hard. And for whatever reason, and there's a lot of bullshit reasons behind this, right? But people like effortless talent. Right? People are attracted to people who don't look like they're trying too hard and don't look like they care too much, which is a very bizarre thing. And maybe this isn't true everywhere all the time, but I've definitely, I have experienced myself that like, ooh, she's intense because she cares so much about everything.
Yeah, right.
What a frustrating piece of feedback to get. So I think what you're talking about is a great way to describe that nervous energy versus what I call calm confidence.
And even if you were like you talk or like I talk, now I'm talking now with my hands and getting excited. But as long as I am keeping it brief, I can still at least have that level of energy. Just know that I have a boundary, I have a time limit, and if I'm sticking to my points, I can exude all of this fantastic energy and this passion, and then I'm done. And that is something that I've had to learn to balance a lot. Now, it doesn't always work. I'm still not everybody's cup of tea in an interview. I'm not always everybody's cup of tea in person, but I do work on making sure that I stick true to myself, which is I'm an excited person. I'm in love with the world. I'm in love with people. I love life. What is happening? Everything is amazing, right? But I know that in order to come across as a professional and know that I know my stuff, that I have to make sure I highlight those certain points. And so it always helps keep my notes, practice, and make sure I'm time boxed. And then I ask, I know that was kind of short, but would you like to hear more, or shall we move on? And then that helps, because then I know we can continue one way or the other.
And on that very note, TL, I want to thank you so much for sharing succinctly and professionally and beautifully all the ways in which your objective statement is working for you, woman. I am so excited, impressed, and encouraged. I know a lot of our community members are. Like TL's story here, ladies, you never know who you are inspiring by just being your boss self, by going to the mat for you and then telling us about it. It's not something that happens in everyday society. Bragging is not deemed cool, right? Especially for us women in today's world. But at Bossed Up, we don't believe in any of that. So I want to encourage everyone, like TL just modeled for us here, thank you, TL, to share your wins. Share your wins in the courage community, because your courage and your perseverance is contagious. So keep those stories coming. Thank you again, TL, for sharing so much. I want to open the floor here, so to speak, by, I'm going to just put up our, I'm going to put up my screen share here real quick and say that it's time for questions. So I want to encourage you, if you haven't already, to tweet at me at bossedup.org or using that hashtag career pregame. And in the meantime, Jackie and I are going to talk through some answers and some conundrums, right? Some questions and some answers to your great questions that came in this last week's weekly check-in report. So Jackie, what are some of the biggest questions? Let's start with maybe your first that you think is like most common that you see our attendees or our challenge participants facing.
Absolutely. So the most common thing that we saw in our questions was about time management in particular. So there were a bunch of different angles to take on the time management,
right,
but they all focused around primarily how you can be a boss in everything that you're doing while trying to manage a potential job search and prepping for that job search.
Yeah, great question. Thank you so much. And I know you've got some great advice on that, but the first thing that comes to my mind, and I want to just ping pong this with you, and ladies, tell us what you think honestly about this, but the question, the way that a lot of you are asking is, how do I be a boss in everything that I'm doing and do a job search? The answer is you don't. I want to draw from my awesome friend, a total rock star, mentor, author, total kick-ass boss lady, Tiffany Dufu, who just wrote an amazing book called Drop the Ball. You should check out her website. I think it's tiffanydufu, DUFU.com. And her video series, Tiffany's Epiphanies, are all lessons that come from her book. She basically says that it's time for us to drop the ball, woman. Like, we cannot be perfect in every arena of our lives at the same time. So that sort of brings us back to this idea of focus that TL touched upon a little bit. When you are adding a huge goal to your to-do list, like getting a new job or getting a promotion or rebranding your entire online presence, you have to decide mindfully what is going to get less attention. I'm not saying you're going to ignore your family forever. I'm not saying you're going to just stop showing up to your day job, but what can you get a B in so that you can get an A in other things? So I think making that choice proactively and mindfully and forgiving yourself in advance for doing less than a perfect job on something is honestly something that we need to talk about realistically. Now, we're all overachievers here, myself included. I'm a perfectionist. I still struggle with that. But sometimes good enough is fucking great. So I just want to put that out there first and foremost. But Jackie, what else are you finding on this topic that you think would be helpful?
So that was really, I think you hit a lot of it where we're at with the time management aspect. So some ladies were also expressing that they're just having a hard time finding where they're putting that, what they're doing with their time in particular, and what a typical structure of a week looks like for the job search.
And I know there was some great advice that we talked about around setting priorities proactively, right? It's in the Bossed Up Manifesto to put it on your calendar. If you care about it, put it on your calendar. Jackie knows that my life would not happen unless it were for Google Calendar. So whether you are a passion planner person, a written one, or you live by your online calendar like I do, fun, family, friends, fitness, all those good F words belong on your calendar because you cannot actually be in two places at once. So if you want to look at the calendar at the top of your week, I like to sit down on Sunday nights and see what the week ahead holds. That's when you can actually proactively say, all right, here's when I'm going to squeeze in my workouts. Here's when I'm going to squeeze in the weekly Bossed Up pregame challenge calendar thing, right? This is when I'm going to do what? Looking at it proactively, like that really helps you forecast your availability. And then, like all of us, when things go off the rails because things fly at you that you did not see coming, at least it's on your calendar, some of those personal goals, so you can move them around. I'm all about the drag and drop. I didn't finish writing an article today that I really needed to write, but I know, okay, I need to drag and drop that to tomorrow. I need to find time to make that happen so I don't blow my deadline. So I think really using your calendar as a proactive planning tool helps. And then some of the other things that we mentioned, Jackie, can you talk about the Pomodoro method a little bit and maybe the power of accountability in like a buddy that we've teamed up with, or how that's worked for you in the past?
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually use the Pomodoro time clock method when I've got a to-do list that I'm having a really hard time tackling, or just have something that I need to work through and have, usually it's a big task that'll take a couple hours, but I can't knock it out all in one sitting. So the Pomodoro time clock method actually lets you set a timer for 25-minute intervals and then take a short break or a long break, depending upon how many Pomodoros you've done. So and there's actually a tomato time clock out there online that you can do and set it up online. So whenever I've got to beat this time system, then I go straight to that. I turn off all my other distractions, and I'm not allowed to touch Facebook or anything until I'm in those 5-minute breaks or so.
That's really smart. Especially, it goes back to the whole cognitive science strategy behind the life tracker, which is called cognitive chunking. It's about taking long-term goals that are big and beefy and impossible seeming and breaking them up into small chunks, small intervals. I'm writing a Fierce Friday interview from one of our amazing Boston Bootcamp alums about some really cool stuff that she just launched. You'll hear all about it on Friday's email and on the blog at bosstup.org. But she told me that after she left boot camp, having been trained in how to use the Bossed Up Life Tracker, she applied that cognitive chunking method to everything. So she came up with a year-long goal, broke it into monthly intervals, broke it into weekly intervals, broke it into daily intervals. So taking a huge, audacious goal and really focused intervals of time like that can be scaled up and scaled down to help you get shit done whenever you need it.
Perfect. So the other method we were talking about was getting a accountability partner. So we've talked about this over and over again with joining our Courage community on Facebook. So there's lots of ladies in there that are interested in partnering up and really helping each other lift as everyone's climbing in the group. Yeah. So that's absolutely one way to help manage the time and set up those goals and priorities and talk them through with your accountability partner, and then come back and meet up to hold each other accountable whether or not you're meeting those goals that you've set.
And I love Fallon's shout out from TL just there, right? Because like we've seen you in the group, Fallon, especially in TL, like holding other people accountable and asking for support and not being shy, saying, I need someone to review my resume. Does anyone want to swap? I love seeing that happen. And no one gets shit done, especially big, unwieldy projects without someone else. Even like every time I try to implement something new or brainstorm a new idea at Bossed Up, it takes a lot of talking it through with people before you can get to implementation. So I think about vision and implementation. When you're struggling with vision, you're not sure where to go next, you're feeling a little stuck, that's the best time to bring in a buddy. When it's implementation that you're struggling with, that's when I think chunking can be the most helpful. And then having someone who just says, hey, did you do that thing you said you were going to do? Just that baseline accountability can be so powerful. Very cool, Jackie. And I want to encourage you to tweet us live or chat live on the chat bar. If you have any other questions like that you want us to take, we'll take now. Otherwise, Jackie, what are these other challenges that we've seen come up again and again that we want to provide some resources on?
So the next area that we saw some questions in were with pay negotiation. Yep. And particularly we've got women looking forward to the interview process as they're beginning to potentially apply for some jobs. And there's some fear or lack of confidence about how to handle that salary question in the middle of the interview. Yeah.
Well, you know I love this topic, right? Because first of all, it should be illegal, and I think it will be illegal soon to ask someone about what they're making in the middle of an interview. Like it is, I think Massachusetts just passed a law saying that should be illegal. Why? Because it perpetuates institutional pay gaps, especially around gender and race. And so if people are getting chronically underpaid from the moment they step out of the higher education bubble or any education bubble, those injustices are just going to continue if your next salary is being dictated by your past salary. So there's a really simple 3-step strategy that I talk about on one of our YouTube videos at youtube.com/bossedupORG. I'm trying to think of the exact name of the video, but we'll tweet it out if I don't have it right now for you. But it's all about how to dodge the mid-interview salary question by basically, 1, refuse to answer the question pleasantly, right, smilingly, but firmly, by saying that this is not, it's too soon to talk about money. We're just in the interview stage, yo. Negotiation doesn't start until you have a solid written offer on the table. Let the offerer, let the employer tell you what they're willing to pay someone to do this job for. That's really how it should work. You don't go into Nordstrom's and tell them what you would pay to have that purse. They have to set the price. And I know it's not an easy thing when employers are being abusive about this, but you need to put the pressure on them to list the first number by not volunteering to list your own salary. So 1, refuse outright. 2, step 2 is to answer that underlying concern that they have, which is, oh my God, am I wasting all of my time right now by interviewing you because there's no way in hell we're going to afford you. So that's the usual underlying concern of the employers. If you can say, listen, it's too early to talk salary, but I want to reassure you that if everything else falls into place, if I'm the right candidate, I am sure that we can come to the right agreement on salary. So remove that concern from their mind. And then step 3, quickly pivot away, right? Like stop, drop, and roll off of that topic. So that's where we talk about, what are good pivot sentences or phrases to say, so tell me more about advancement here. Or can you tell me more about this? Or can you explain to me what my review structure would look like in the meantime? Get off that topic. If they are really adamant about going back and back and back to that, you can play the pleasant refusal game for as long as you possibly can. I would flatly get to the point, before naming my own salary, I would flatly get to the point of saying, listen, I'm not going to disclose that information. I don't think it's relevant to this process. And that tells you something about that employer too. So check that video out for more details. It's on our YouTube channel. And Google negotiation, or just search negotiation on the Bossed Up blog. You'll find lots of good resources there as well. But remember, you're not negotiating a salary offer until you've been given a firm offer. So just avoid disclosing your salary at all costs, including on those stupid online forums that seem to require it. Put funny numbers in there if you have to. Put negotiable in there. Put it's up for discussion. I'm not advocating that you lie outright, but I think you should do anything to avoid disclosing that information, which could eventually come back to really bite you in the butt if they were going to offer you $100K and you just said, oh, by the way, I make $60K right now. So I could be on that soapbox all night, as you know, Jackie. That's a lot of what we cover at Bossed Up Bootcamp is an hour-long training on negotiation, how exactly to master it before you transition your career path.
Definitely. I think that was one of the most valuable things I was able to learn at boot camp when I went this past April. So I'll definitely be negotiating like a boss in my future.
Yeah, girl. I love it.
So another question along the negotiation lines is, once you're offered a job, some of our women wanted to know, how do you develop that confidence about negotiating when you might be worried that they're either going to rescind the offer or flat out reject you?
I think it goes back to remembering that you're interviewing the employer as much as they're interviewing you. Negotiation is scary, whether you've been employed by them for a long time or not, but it's not something that your employer is ever going to roll the red carpet out for. Like, they're never going to make it super easy for you to feel like, hey, it's time for you to negotiate your salary, except sometimes in my company, in which I have to explain to my amazing team, like, okay, it's time to renew your contracts. Let's talk about salary. What do you have to say? Oftentimes, your boss is not going to say, okay, now's when we negotiate. So really what it boils down to is being assertive. Assertive, as we know, is different than aggressive. Assertive is just going to the mat for yourself. It's advocating for yourself. And again, it's a skill that is challenging because it's not something we practice a lot. It's not something we're taught a lot, especially as women who our whole lives, right, we've been socialized to be nice and sweet and caring for others. But we need to direct some of that energy and effort to ourselves. And again, assertive communication, the most requested topic that I speak on at organizations and universities and companies with different teams all across the country. But mastering assertive communication, whether you check out the resources we have on YouTube on that or at Bossed Up Bootcamp, it's one of those life changers. And it speaks to the other questions that I saw in there, Jackie, around work-life balance and time management, right? When you know who you are, you know your goals, and know your worth, it becomes easier to draw healthy boundaries and protect them by asserting yourself. It's not the only right way to talk, right? Being assertive is not the only right way to be, but it is one of those really critical skills for bossing up that really we have to get over performing for everyone, over pleasing everyone else, and say, does this further my leadership purpose? Does this further my goals? And if not, I need to like let this person down sometimes and become okay with not being perfectly liked by everyone all the time. And there's a book I've been reading all about that. That's an oldie but a goodie. I don't know if you can read that because my library sticker, but The Curse of the Good Girl, right? If we get out of this this perfectionism, we'll talk about a meta moment there, this trap of being perfect and well-liked by everyone all the time, we can actually get shit done. I'll leave it at that.
Perfect. I think that's exactly the kind of answer they wanted to hear from that.
Cool.
So the next area we've seen is a lot of women are using this challenge to help them transition to a different career that they don't necessarily have experience in, or they're feeling that way at least. So when transitioning careers and focusing more on skills than the job you're applying for, how can someone represent that change and the transferability in the resume?
That's such a great question. I mean, here's the thing. We just posted this great article today. I think it was in the Wall Street Journal, but you can find it on our Facebook page, facebook.com/bosseduporg. It's a story about a woman who at 45 years old learned how to code. And that's not an easy thing, right? She like invested in her training and her, worked with experts and basically went back to school. I don't know if it was a formal higher education program or a certificate program or whatever, but she put in a lot of time, effort, and energy into investing in her career transition. She went from being a client services manager at a large national, I want to say it was like a travel agency where she was working with people, and she was a high performer who took pride in her job. But she wanted better pay, she wanted better mobility, and she knew that this industry was not going to be the right one for her in the long term. And she made a big career transition at 45. So I think it's inspiring to see that in the knowledge economy, learning is your ticket out. Learning and being willing to invest in retooling and focusing on your skill set is your opportunity, is really the vehicle through which we can all transition our career paths. And so in some ways it takes some time, and then in others it takes convincing someone else, like your next boss, that the investments you've made and that the skills you've developed thus far are going to pay off for them as well. They're taking a chance on you, but you've invested in yourself, so you believe in your preparedness, in your readiness, in your applicability of those skills that you already have mastered into this new domain. So that's a persuasion campaign, right? Like when I think of my political background, you have to persuade someone into voting for you. It's the same idea. You have to say, here's my past experiences, here's my qualifications, here's why I'm going to kick ass at this next job. Even though it's not the same job, even though it might not be the same industry, here's how my past experiences will be brought to bear in this new role. So one of the best ways to really focus on your skills and bring the focus away from the industry and more towards what you did is to really know the like descriptors, know the buzzwords that the skill set words that industry is looking for. And you can glean that from looking at a lot of different job postings in your new industry. Say you're going from politics to HR, right? Really learn the lingo, immerse yourself by having lots of meetings with people who can help you identify what doesn't translate very well from one industry to the next, maybe on your resume, for instance. And then two, explore a redesign of your information. So when I think about a chronological resume, you're saying, here's what I did most recently. Here's what I did before that. That presentation of information might not be the most persuasive if you really want to focus on applicable skills when making a career transition. So I did a great webinar, I think it was in the email, on last week or the week before last week, on resumes, that links to a webinar I did with Jessica Aries, my sister-in-law, who's a legal marketing professional, all about a skills-based resume, which is a structure that might work best for those who are navigating total career or industry transition. So I want you to know it's possible. It takes some time. And learning is key, and persuading people that the investment you've made in your own skill set will pay off for them is how I want you to think about it. The last video I'll push on this, just because I want to direct you all to more resources where you can go deeper on this, is the very first YouTube video I ever put out at the very beginning of this year, which, by the way, let me just say that production value has never been my strength, but in the first video I ever did, it's especially a little fuzzy, a little rough, so bear with me. But the info is rock solid. It's called How to Make 2016 Your Career Leap Year, since this was, in fact, a leap year. And it talks about this 3-step strategy for taking a low-risk way of trying on a new industry for size, which is a good place to start if you're just starting to consider that process.
Perfect. So another question within kind of the same area is, when you're applying via like computer, everything's gone more technological now. Right. So how do you beat the applicant system that's online when you don't when you're looking to transfer or transition into a new role?
Well, ironically, and we're going to get to this later in a couple of weeks into the challenge from now, but here's the thing. If the online system is the only way you are working that angle, that's not always sufficient. I'm not saying it can't be done. I know it has been done on occasion, but a personal recommendation and internal reference in particular goes a very, very long way at helping secure interviews. So if you're just at the application stage and you're applying to a robot, good luck, right? Put your best foot forward and make sure you're using the buzzwords that are all about the skills they are looking for. You should include those keywords because people search through keywords often in that. So look at the keywords or the skill sets that they're absolutely requiring in that job, and make sure that those words come up in your resume. Or in your, I shouldn't say your resume, but in your application. Secondly, you need to work that LinkedIn hunt, right? Or you need to work your network and find someone within that company structure who you can have coffee with, who has a friend of a friend, who would be willing to talk with you over the phone, and ask them outright to put in a good word for you. After you've built a little bit of a rapport, right? Explain to them why you think you would be the perfect candidate and how excited you are at the prospect of getting an interview. And if there's anything they can do to put in a good word for you, you would so appreciate it. We have to be our own best advocates on this stuff. Just like we would do on behalf of our friends, or our loved ones, or causes that we care about. We have to direct that same effort and energy towards ourselves. So don't let the robot be your only hope, right? Get some humans involved, even if it means being dogged in your search. And again, go back to goal and audience, be concise, be clear about what's in it for them and what's in it for you. Like, they have a great coworker to gain out of this process. And be explicit in your ask. Hey, would you be willing to hop on the phone with me, or on the phone? Hey, if there's anything you could do to put in a good word, I'd so appreciate it. Period, right? And then, of course, thank them and all that jazz. But those one-on-one meetings are so invaluable, especially when you're in the midst of a job search. So, Jackie, I just want to acknowledge the time, because I can't believe it already. We're coming to the end of our Hangout a little bit. But if there are any questions, I'm pulling up Twitter right now. I want to make sure that we get to any of the live questions that might have come in, or maybe one more question that we've seen coming up. I mean, we saw so many great questions that came in through the weekly reports, but one last one I think is what we've got time for.
Okay, perfect. Well, I think to wrap it up really well with the question about one-on-one meetings is, how do you get that? So if you know someone from the applicant, or that is at the job that you're applying for, how do you reach out to someone you might have had just an acquaintance relationship with to have that one-on-one meeting? And then how do you get from that stage with the one-on-one meeting to getting the interview?
Great question. So, I mean, honestly, let's say you've got a contact on LinkedIn. I would consider that a cold contact, right? I would send them a message on LinkedIn or an email or a voicemail if you can get their information. You know, a lot of this is publicly available. It's not, there's a fine line, right, between stalking and being dogged in your research, but I would not hesitate to email someone and say, hey, I wanted to get in touch because I'm currently applying for this opening and I wanted to hear about your experience with the Coca-Cola company. You know, I see that you've been working there for a while. If you have 10 minutes to spare over the phone, I'd so appreciate it. Just for your information, I'm attaching my resume so you can get to know me a little bit. But if you have a chance to hop on the phone, just let me know. I will call you. Let me know when works for you. A really quick email or message like that. Direct them to where they can learn more about you. Put your best foot forward digitally. But I think a voicemail or an email, I would attempt that way first. It's even better if you can ask for an e-introduction, right? Hey, my friend Jackie knows you. Jackie's going to write an email saying, hey, Mr. or Mrs. So-and-so who works at Coca-Cola, this is my friend Emily. She's applying for a job here. If you've got a chance to hop on the phone with her, I would so appreciate it, right? So use the connections you have to make new connections. And then when you're on the phone with them, here's the thing. At the end of the day, that person cannot guarantee that you're going to get an interview either. But what you do want to do is be explicit towards the end of your conversation. You share a little bit about yourself. You ask them a little bit about themselves and their experience. And then explicitly ask at the end of that conversation, hey, if there's anything you can do to help put in a good word for me, here's the hiring manager, here's their email, or, you know, I don't know who the hiring manager is, but if you could tell them, here's my resume, forward this on for me, I would greatly appreciate it. So you're going to ask them to ask their colleagues who are conducting the search to consider you as a top candidate. And basically, it's a verbal way of asking them to put your resume at the top of the pile. Doesn't always work, but it's the best you can do. So if you make a good impression, you know, virtually or in person or over the phone, even better. They're never guaranteed to do what you're asking them to do, but you want to ask them anyway. And then be prepared to get those calls in the future and make your own judgment call. If I feel good about the candidate, I will definitely put in a good word for them. If I don't feel good about the candidate, I don't want to put my own reputation on the line by recommending someone I don't actually recommend. So at the end of the day, you got to keep those things in mind. Put your best foot forward, ask for the help that you need, and have a little faith. And it might, you know, it might turn into something and it might not, but that's okay. You don't win every single time you're at bat, right? You don't get hit a home run every at bat, but you got to keep swinging.
Absolutely. I know we have a really great video on our blog all about how to effectively run a one-on-one meeting like that too.
Yes. I think it's an article called like How to Have Networking Meetings Without Wasting People's Time. And there's a real art to it. And we're going to talk a little bit about that in the challenge too. So thank you for recommending that video. It really is all about how to share your story, which is what is coming next. So I'm going to put up my slides once more so that we can preview for y'all. Whoa, there's the tunneling out. And if anyone's question did not get answered tonight, please tweet me, email me, give us a shout out in the Courage community. We will absolutely be doing more Hangouts when we are going to be answering even more questions. Oh no, I hit the wrong button, didn't I? Did my screen go away? Yeah. All right, let me try that one more time. All right, Jackie, what is coming next on this career pregame challenge?
Perfect. So we're so excited for these next 4 weeks with y'all. And you've already gotten a sneak peek and probably taken a look at week 5. So this is Prep Your Online Presence. So within this challenge, we're talking more about how to make your job search or make your social media job search ready. So now we know with how technological everything is, recruiters are potentially going out and finding your LinkedIn profile or your Facebook and Twitter. So we really want to make sure that when they come to those profiles, your online presence looks really great. So, and you'll be going into way more detail later on this week with that as you work through the lesson and check in within our group. So week 6 will be all about learning to tell your story. And with that, we definitely want to focus on how to really sell yourself in an interview and create the buy-in with potential employers, or just talking to other people when you're networking, which leads us really well into week 7, which is network like a boss. And within networking, you have to create those excellent connections to really help you be able to land a job in the future. So by being able to tell your story, somebody's going to have a lot more interest in you as a candidate or as a person if you have a story and have something they can help you with or that you care about. And in return, they'll tell you their story when you share that information. And then finally, for week 8, we'll be wrapping up with how to start your search the smart way. And we'll be going over how to proceed on from after this 8 weeks of challenges that you've been going through, and how to continue moving forward throughout your job search process, even in the face of potentially getting some no's, or celebrating and getting the yeses for interviews or being offered positions.
Awesome. And as we know, it takes more than 8 weeks potentially to land the job of your dreams, and you've all put in so much critical effort already that a lot of it is like honing your approach, right? Honing your search and your strengths and communicating those strengths. The next half of this challenge is really about broadcasting your strengths and really doing so in a mindful way, so that you're getting the right attention from the right people. So I'm really excited to hang out with you and continue online and in person to help you navigate the career transition that you're facing, whatever that might be. And that reminds me that I want to make sure you know that we've got lots of in-person events, hangouts that are happening for real, in real life, that I want to make sure that you are invited to. So first and foremost, I mentioned at the start of this hangout, Boston's